Hi, and thanks for logging on to the daily DVAR Halacha. And here's a brand new halacha for you, and it's for Friday, May 6th, fifth day of Iyar. Today, an interesting halacha that explains how Rashi, the famed Rashi, this is quoted in the Machzor Vitri, how Rashi did the count for Sefiras Ha'Omer each night. And I don't expect any of us to be following this exactly. It's just fascinating to note how Rashi did this. The Rashba himself asks questions on this quote from Rashi in the Machzor Vitri and says, how could he have done it that way? But let me get to the point and explain to you what I'm talking about. We all have the carefulness of watching, that we remember to count the Sefiras Ha'Omer and that we don't miss one, because we like to consider it one unit, if just in case it is halachically one unit, and one missed count could mean that you blew the 49-day count. So here's what Rashi used to do to avoid this problem. He would count Sefiras Ha'Omer at Plag HaMincha. Now, some of you are familiar with that term, some of you might not be. Plag HaMincha is an early time in the evening that's, let's just say it loosely so it won't get too complex, but Plag HaMincha is an hour and a quarter before sundown, and that hour and a quarter is not exactly 75 minutes. It's 1/12 of the day times 1 1/4. I probably said that too complicated, but basically, if the sun goes down in your area around, let's say, 8 o'clock, so Plag HaMincha could be, back around 6:45. I'm just saying that loosely, an approximation. So Rashi used to count at Plag HaMincha because that is, according to some opinions, the beginning of evening. And in some ways, we do treat Plag HaMincha as nighttime. That's what we rely on when we do early Shabbos, is we are using Plag HaMincha as our reference point to call it evening. So Rashi would count at Plag HaMincha, and I'm not talking about Shabbos, even regular times. Rashi would count Sfira at Plag HaMincha without a bracha, and then later in the evening, when it was nightfall, he remembered, hopefully, and then he counted with a bracha. It's a little bit astonishing because here he was counting in a time that we called evening, and then he would make a bracha later after it was nightfall and count with a bracha, and the bracha was not considered for nothing. So people kind of wrangle on why Rashi wanted to do it this way. Reb Soloveitchik explains that Rashi felt that b'diavad, after the fact, if he ever did end up forgetting, that count that he did at Plag HaMincha could count, but halachically it wasn't such a stable count. It was so early in the halachic evening, so much so that Rashi felt it was safe enough to count with a bracha later that evening. I'm not really telling anyone to do this. That's not the common custom of anybody that I know of nowadays, but I'm just, we're learning here. And I'm just teaching how Rashi, this is again in Machzor Vitri, this is how Rashi counted Sfira, according to a quote there in the Machzor Vitri. Counted, again, the count of Sfira at Plag HaMincha, which is quite early in the evening, and then later in the evening, when it was nightfall, he would count Sfira with a bracha. Again, I'm just saying this for the second time. We're not recommending here that anybody do this. Just a fascinating halachic inquiry into the way Rashi dealt with the delicate issue of counting and remembering and being certain to remember. I hope I didn't make that complicated. Have yourself a great Shabbos, and log on again after Shabbos for more. Bye-bye.